Hello everyone, my name is Vedant and welcome to Markets Daily, a daily stock market insights and analysis podcast by Bajaj Broking. Our mission to bring our listeners, that's you, the daily financial news and advice you will need before the markets open so that you can make the best decisions when it comes to improving your finances. Additionally, along with this program, if you require any more information, please do visit www.bajajbroking.in. With that said, let's get into today's episode. Starting with the top 5 news headlines for the day, we'll start with DCX Systems, who has co-entered into a supply and services agreement with Israel Aerospace India Services. And in automotives, Landmark Cars gets an LOI from Honda to acquire existing dealership operations in Jaipur, Alwar, and Bhiwadi. And in the raw material space, coal production in April is up 7.4% to stand at 78.69 metric tons versus the 73.26 metric tons year on year, according to the Coal Ministry. Moving on, Coforge is expected to acquire 54% share capital of Signity Technologies. And lastly, manganese ore production is up 22% as well year on year at 1.60 lakh tons. And those are the top 5 news headlines for the day. For any additional news headlines that we might have missed, please be sure to check the description box of this podcast episode. But before we get into the global market insights, a quick look at the FII and DII sales data for today. The FII's net sales stands at 964.47 crore rupees, while the DII's net buy stands at 1,352.44 crore rupees in equities yesterday. Now moving to the global market insights. On Wall Street, US stocks closed with solid gains after Federal Chair Jerome Powell said that while recent inflation readings means that it will likely take longer than expected for central bank officials to become comfortable that inflation will resume its decline, interest rate increases also remained unlikely. In terms of the numbers, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 322.37 points or 0.85% to close at 38,225.66 points. The S&P 500 gained 45.81 points or 0.91% to close at 5,064.20 points. And the Nasdaq Composite gained 235.48 points or 1.51% to close at 15,840.96 points. Tech shares and consumer discretionary led sector gains closing up roughly 1.6% as Qualcomm surged about 10% following its quarterly results, while Amazon advanced 3.2%. And after the close, Apple reported a smaller than expected decline in quarterly revenue, and Chief Executive Officer Tim Cook told Reuters the company expects a return to sales growth in the current quarter. Apple Incorporated rose 6% in aftermarket trade, adding to gains in the tech sector after the company posted earnings which were not as bad as markets were fearing. US economic data also showed the labor market remains tight ahead of key government payrolls data due on Friday, while other data indicating worker productivity was subdued in the first quarter. And in the East, Asia-Pacific markets rose on Friday, tracking Wall Street gains ahead of key US employment data. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.6%, while the smaller cap Kosdaq added 0.77%. Stock markets in Japan and mainland China were shut for public holidays. And with that, we have exhausted the news and insight about what's happening outside our shores, so let's move inwards to discuss the Indian markets and indices. The GIFT Nifty suggests a gap up opening amid firm global cues, and the Nifty spot post a positive opening is likely to trade with positive bias in the range of 22,850 to 22,650 levels. For the Nifty short-term outlook, benchmark indices traded in a range with high volatility and closed the session marginally higher amid consolidation in global markets after the US Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged within that 5.25 to 5.5% range, and signaled that rates could likely remain higher for longer than previously expected, but kept the rate hikes firmly off the table. The Nifty closed the session at 22,648 levels, an uptick by 0.2%, while the Bank Nifty closed the session at 49,231 levels, a drop by 0.3%. The index has formed a bull candle which mostly remained enclosed inside previous session's price range, signaling consolidation amid stock-specific action on the progression of the quarterly earnings session. Going ahead, only a move above Tuesday's high of 22,783 levels will lead to an extension of the up move towards the 23,000 level, while failure to do so will signal a consolidation in the broad range of 22,800 to 22,300 levels. The short-term support for the Nifty is currently placed at 22,000 levels to 22,200 levels, being the confluence of the lower band of the rising channel in place since January 2024 and 61.8% retracement of the current up move from 21,777 levels to 22,476 levels, and the value of the rising 50 days EMA currently placed at 22,220 levels. And for the intraday levels for the day, for the Nifty, intraday resistance is situated at 22,790 levels, followed by 22,850 levels. Conversely, downside support is located at 22,640 levels, followed by 22,600 levels. For the Bank Nifty, intraday resistance is positioned at 49,630 levels, followed by 49,850 levels, while downside support is found at 49,230 levels, followed by 49,050 levels. And lastly, for the Fin Nifty, intraday resistance is positioned at 22,000 levels, followed by 22,080 levels, while downside support is found at 21,870 levels, followed by 21,790 levels. And for the Nifty, the highest put open interest stands at 22,000 levels, with the highest call open interest at 23,000 levels. The 22,700 level is the second highest call and put open interest level. And put open interest is concentrated below 22,700 levels, and call writers are concentrated above. 22,700 levels is expected to be a decisive level for the Nifty today, and overall PCR open interest increased by 0.17 points to close at 1.28, indicating bullish bias. And for the Bank Nifty, the weekly option chain has a wide 2,000 point range, with the highest put open interest addition at 48,000 levels and the highest call open interest at 50,000 levels. 49,500 levels acts as immediate resistance and 49,000 levels as immediate support. Notable call writing at 49,500 levels has been countered by put writing at 49,000 levels. Any directional move is likely beyond the 49,000 to 49,500 range, and probability favors surpassing 49,500 and sustaining that bullish trend. And with that, we have exhausted all the news about the equities market, so let's move into our final section of the episode, the other asset classes. US Treasury yields were choppy in the wake of the Fed and economic data, as the yield on benchmark US 10-year notes fell 0.8 basis points up to 4.583% from 4.591% late on Wednesday. The 2-year note yield, which typically moves in step with interest rate expectations, fell 5.2 basis points to 4.8872% from 4.939%. The dollar index, which measures the greenback against a basket of 6 major currencies, fell 0.35% to close at 105.34 points. And in oil, prices were little changed after a slump to a 7-week low, losing some ground after the US labor market data. US crude settled down 0.06% at $78.95 a barrel, and Brent settled at $83.67 a barrel, up 0.28% on the day. And with that, we have reached the end of today's episode, and we need to start knuckling down and getting ready for the market's opening later today, as I'm sure you do too. As always, I hope you all have gotten something meaningful out of today's program, and as mentioned before, for more information, please visit www.bajajbroking.in. This podcast was made possible by the good people at Bajaj Broking. And we can't wait to bring more financial news and analysis to you when we return next week. Cheers, everyone.
Investments in the securities market are subject to market risk. Read all related documents carefully before investing.